three damn muscles on your eyeballs.
I forgot I had that one queued up. Good evening, Warband. We're starting to, well, a bit earlier than usual for a weeknight, but it's good to see a bunch of you here. We got D-Man 50, Solitaire, Conal McCracken, Sir Yeetus, Mr. Pliskin, Frost, and Random Gen Z Bastard. Welcome, welcome, everyone. And Dr. Dree. Yay. Or no raisin? Damn. So go Una with tornado sirens. I'm sure it'll sound great. I'll add that to the ever-growing list of project ideas. But before we dive into our continued research into the history of Think Before You Sleep, I'm just going to post the donation link in the chat and pin that up at the top. If you want your comment read on stream with TTS, or you just feel like donating, that is the preferred link to do it. YouTube takes 50%, so if you can't do that or just want to do a super chat instead, please do the bare minimum. I'm going to show YouTube the value of the Laffer curve and just deny them whatever I can. Hey, Alucard, welcome. We are getting into Think Before You Sleep's Hidden Past. So, we currently have, I guess we'll begin the segment here, Archive episode number 15, End Universal Suffrage. I better make sure, hold on. There we go. Sizing was off. And then we have a nice political cartoon from that particular era. But let us get into it. 14 minutes on the clock. Let's go.
This has been a topic that's been growing in popularity over the past couple months, and so I thought I'd put my little commentary in there because I think I've got something to add. And what I'd like to add to this is that I don't think the problem is as simple as people are making it out to be. I think it's a lot more complicated. And so in the red pill community, it's very popular to say that the female vote was a mistake. But I don't think that is the exact core of the issue. Certainly, I agree with concepts of that. I don't think we should have a female majority vote. But I think the problem goes a lot deeper than that.
I like how we qualified that with a female majority vote. We'll keep going and see where he's going with this.
Which is to say that it's not just the 19th that's a mistake, it's the idea of universal suffrage itself. It's the idea that every person over the age of 18 should have the right to vote, barring the draft. I think that's actually a mistake. Because
let's hear his justification for that.
What you want to do is in any sort of system where things could go wrong, and things go wrong could have a very disastrous effect on the people who are a part of that system, you want to create consequences around the people who are making the decisions. Because if you don't have consequences and you make a decision and you don't pay for it, you will continue to make that decision again, or you will not learn from your mistakes. This is why, if you look at cars are extremely...
Okay, so we'll see whether or not he actually has a solution or whether he's going to the problem. Like, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here and interrupt him, but of course he's going to go into an example explaining the concept in depth when I just want to hear him, elaborate on what he just said, rather than explain it to me like I'm an idiot who doesn't understand.
Dangerous. It surprises me that we don't just have accidents all the time. Like, not even that, not even do we not have accidents, but it's like, how often do people even like nudge your car or scratch your car? Like, I've been to plenty of third world countries where people are kind of, bumping into cars all the time. And it doesn't matter there because their cars are kind of shitty. So if you have another scratch in your already really scratched car, it's no big deal. But in America, where nobody, it's like if you scratch someone's car, it's like you better pay $400 to repaint that panel, or that's actually pay $1,000 to repaint that panel if you're getting a good paint job, or else. And so people don't even do that. They don't even make mistakes that are that small in cars. And the reason for that is because if you create a problem with a car, you are completely responsible. Now, of course, you might pay the ultimate consequence, which is if you really fuck up in your car, if you're driving drunk, or if you're half asleep on the wheel, or if you're not.
Okay, again, he's going like an hour, like, well, not an hour. He's been rambling on for what, a minute about this metaphor. It's like, dude, we get it. Consequences lead to specific outcomes. You don't want people to do something, you have to punish them when they do it. Okay. Can you get back to the actual point here, which is about government systems and what you think is the real core of the issue?
Not paying attention, it could very well be the end of your life. At the very least, if you crash into somebody and your life does not end, you could end up paying for it for quite a long time, or you could be at least paying higher insurance rates because you're liable for messing up there. When we vote, however, we are not liable currently, except for men. Men are reliable for the draft, and that's why I have a problem with female suffrage, because women pay no price for voting. In fact, when they got female suffrage back in the 20s, they first offered to say, okay, women can have the right to vote, but they're going to have to sign up for the draft. And there was a big movement by women against the vote for women because they did not want to sign up for the draft. Because why would you want to? And in fact, women can't be the ones who sign up for the draft because men are stronger than women. And so if you have a force versus all women versus a force full of all men, the female force is going to lose. And even if we're fighting a war with weapons, weapons that are useful are very, very heavy. A lot of women can't even lift a standard M4 rifle.
Okay, 2 minutes into it, and you're just elaborating on, like, I'm pretty sure this was not, again, it's like basic level stuff. Like, he's talking to people that A, don't already agree with him, I guess, or are B, so stupid that they need these in-depth explanations. But okay, you don't like it. Do you actually have a solution? Because, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to get into this here, and we'll see whether or not he actually covers it later. But I could end up waiting for half the video at this rate before he actually starts to elaborate and gives me something to grab onto. Okay, first off, the consequence, yes, they're for men. Because it's not just, oh, the draft. No, the consequences is that if men vote for politicians, then they will go and be sent to die in a war that they probably don't want to fight in. That's why. That's why, men probably don't want to elect a warmonger, because they don't want to be sent overseas to perish for a reason that they don't actually agree with. You give women the majority vote, the women are free to vote for wars that will lead to a lot of men's death. Given that men are the primary taxpayers as well, and women are the primary tax spenders, when you give more power to the spenders than the earners, you get policies that discourage the earning of money and increase the amount that is spent. And that would lead to, a massive deficit when your income is being slashed and your output is increasing. You're ending up in the red. Oh, yeah, what's the national debt? Insanely high? Surprise, surprise. But, okay. So that's the difference for voters. So are you going to say that maybe it's the voting system itself? Because you apparently have an issue, which we'll see whether or not you get into it, an issue as to just the concept of, hey, everyone should be able to vote so long as they can be drafted. Where's the accountability for the politicians then? Oh yeah, that's supposed to be the populace. The populace is supposed to deal with it. And voting is a bloody good way of making it like, oh, well, the politicians made bad decisions and are absolutely screwing you over. Well, you should have just voted for better politicians then. It's ultimately your fault as the voter that your politicians do bad things, because you're supposed to hold them to account by not voting for people who do bad things. Yeah. We've all seen how that goes. Yeah, it's like, Yeah, I'm not really sure what I could say to get my point across that wouldn't get me demonetized and or banned, but if I say Tree of Liberty, I'm sure that most of you will understand what I'm getting at. Well, let's continue and see if he actually gets to his point, or if he just drops it in order to give more anecdotes.
Or an M16, or even, like, I remember teaching, I'm not super good at firearms, but I'm good enough to teach someone the rules of safety. And so I taught a Boy Scout thing a bunch of years ago, and it was like a mother-son shooting thing because it seemed like the male parents there wanted to get their wives more on board with guns.
Boy Scouts. Mother-daughter shooting thing at the Boy Scouts. I have a thing for this. There we go. All right, let's keep going.
A lot of women are very uncomfortable with guns, and they'll say, no guns in this house. And so the whole design of this was to get women out there shooting to show the guns were not that dangerous, or it's not as mysteriously dangerous as they think they are, as the media would like to promote, which is typically, if you want to get someone into guns, you have them shoot first. It's the easiest way to turn somebody over. And so that's what this was. But so we were just shooting like basic, 22 rifles. I think the rifles were like 2 pounds, and that was it. And a lot of the mothers complained that their rifles were too heavy. Now, an AR-15 or an M4 is about 7 or 8 pounds, so 4 times as heavy. They're having problems with the 2-pound gun when just to even stand in the same playing field, you have to be able to hold a gun that is maybe 4 times as heavy, or at least twice as heavy. Let's say it's a really heavy 22, it's at least twice as heavy as that. And they were having trouble lifting it. That's not to include all the other equipment that you have to have in order to fight any combat force. So having an all-female force is not going to work because men are stronger than women, and the team that uses men is going to win. So the draft has to be uniquely...
It's not that the team that uses men it's going to win. It's that the team that uses women, regardless of how many men they have, is going to lose.
Male. No exceptions there, but the point being is that over the past, and this started before feminism. It started with getting rid of property rights. You had to own property to vote. I think the last one was in the 1800s, where they said, okay, now you don't have to own property to vote. And the big deal with that is because if you have property, you have something to lose. You never really trust people who don't have something to lose from a big decision like that. That's the whole design of this, is you have to have some skin in the game. And so not only at this point do you not have to have any skin in the game, but you have to, you can be someone who is benefiting from bad decisions, and you can still vote. You can get welfare and still vote. And welfare is primarily a female thing. Women are primarily the voters, and they keep voting more and more of this stuff in, because even though welfare is a bad decision, even though welfare is clearly unsustainable, it's going to end sometime, whether we want it to or not. It'll end by force. Now, the government's done a pretty good job of delaying the end of welfare, but things that go up must fall down. So eventually this problem will be over, but we want to hope that it's not forced to end, because if it's forced to be over, we'll have a major catastrophe on our hands.
What the heck do you mean, forced to be over? It's not, okay, if it's going to be forced to be over because the economy is going to collapse, that's what's going to be forced to be over. What, do you think it's going to be given up willingly? Well, welfare being given up willingly. You have not only all the poor people with the welfare, and it would be one thing if it was just them, but no. It's going to be the retirement plans. It's going to be all the people who are like, well, I paid into this system for decades, so I deserve to get my retirement payout. Nah. That's what's going to go to. Welfare ain't just for poor people. It's also for people who paid into the system thinking that there was a big payoff. It's like, nah, Now, your money wasn't being sent into a savings account for you to withdraw later. No. It was being tossed down a black hole, trusting that you were going to die before you ever came to collect. That is your welfare. Quite frankly, if you want to retire, so far as I'm concerned, don't bother putting your money into a retirement plan. Like, if you're not going to withdraw this for a good 10 years, don't bother putting it into a retirement plan. Put it into some sort of tangible asset that you can hold and exchange. Because if you give your retirement plan to someone else, you have no right to complain when all that money disappears when you come to pick it up. But successful endeavors. Unless women are drafted, they shouldn't vote because they don't have the potential to involuntarily lose their lives. Otherwise, repeal the 19th. Repeal the 19th on principle alone. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but let's say we do draft women. They're going to get pregnant. And then they're going to get the exception anyway. Like, women have a get out of war free card installed with them. And even then, like, if we got to the point where you needed to draft the populace for war, do you really want women? So, like, no one actually wants women in the military. Like, no one who cares about, the military strength or wanting to win it. Yeah, sure, they're in there for optics. But it's the same with, and I love this example, firefighters. Like, would you rather have an all-male squad of firefighters show up at your house to drag your unconscious family members out? Or would you rather have a mixed squad of men and women pull up? Pretty sure that you're going to want the all-male firefighter squad every single time. Same with the military. Like, where would you install them? You're going to put them on the front lines? You're going to put women in the trenches? No. It would be an interesting idea, though, to, pull up Photoshop, find some old World War I atrocity stuff, and just, make half the bodies women. Just to be like true, and then just subtitle it True Gender Equality. But that's not for this video. For US people, IRS form. I will wait to see if the catches that super chat there. Most female positions are going to be on logistics. Oh, yes.
For USPPARS Form 4029, read it. Wave Social S.
Not necessarily against it, but I'm also not familiar with US law. Successful, most female positions are going to be in logistics. Oh, congratulations. Yeah, they half-assed the logistics, and now your male army is starving to death. Yeah, let's just continue here. We could be at this for ages talking about it, but he still hasn't quite gotten to the point. He's just trying to make the point that women aren't suitable for military. It's like, yeah. I guess there are people who might not know this, but I guess that's who he's trying to appeal to. People who aren't aware and they've watched one too many Marvel movies.
That I would certainly like to avoid if possible. And so not only do you not have to bear the consequences of welfare, but you can be on welfare and vote yourself more welfare. In science, we call that a conflict of interest. If you have a paper with a conflict of interest, like you work for Coca-Cola and you do research on Coca-Cola and you say Coca-Cola is the #1 health food on the entire planet. Of course you're going to say that. You were paid to say that. So you can't really take now initial research by a company that's creating a drug or creating a modality is certainly fine. But what should happen is you should be testing it against people who don't have any sort of financial benefit for being wrong.
Really? You can't trust people who financially benefit from saying untrue things. Yet another point of irony from the one who's trying to appeal to mass normies and really coax up the algorithm. Yeah, Sean, we can see why you dropped this video. Thankfully, it was archived, so we still have it.
So if I'm wrong that Coca-Cola is a health food, well, who gives a shit about that? I still make my money. So where this eventually needs to go is that we need to restore the republic. America is not a democracy. Hopefully, if you're listening to this channel, you know that. If you didn't, newsflash. America is not a democracy, and they did not ever want it to be a democracy because direct democracies like Rome fail. Because if you have a direct democracy, it is really easy to manipulate all the stupid people in society, and there are far more stupid people than there are smart people. You want a small, intelligent minority to be able to decide what is good for the situation. Basically, that's what you want for everything. If you want someone to build your house, or if you want someone, let's say, do your plumbing, because plumbing can be very destructive if you get it wrong. If you want someone to put into plumbing, you don't just ask everybody. You ask the small minority who are experts on plumbing to fix the problem for you. Otherwise, you could very well hire someone who destroys your entire house. And so that's what the Republic was designed for. It's like, we don't have every single person in the society is either not intelligent enough, or does not have enough time to specify all the specific knowledge it takes to learn how to run a country properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these people who are hyper interested in the situation. They're going to do all the philosophy. They're going to read all the books. They're going to look at how to lead things. They're going to have experience in certain fields that are leadership positions. And those are the people we're going to pick to put into politics. We're going to pick the smartest possible candidate, and they're going to represent this group of people. And then over here in this section, this person's going to represent that group of people. And that way, we all pick our champions. And you want to make that as reasonably selective as you can. So if you limit things to like property ownership, you might have taken out 80% of the population, but that 20% is still whatever 20% of 300 million is. Let's say it's 60 million, right? Something around that. Or something around there. That's still a shitload of people. That's actually half the current voting population. So if we just took 80% of that, we'd still have millions of people voting. So you're still going to have, you want democratized power. You certainly don't want a monopoly, but you don't want it too democratized. It's like that balance. You don't want it too far this way. You don't want it too far that way. So let's bring it somewhere in the middle. Let's have.
Oh, has someone been listening to a bunch of Tim Pool? The truth lies somewhere in the middle. You want democratized power, but you don't want too much democratized power. Okay, but then here's the question. Where's the accountability for these intellectuals? This group of elites that you want controlling shit over the majority of the population. How are they kept in check? Is it the elites serving the elites? Because this is ultimately where the argument comes that dismantles that. As soon as you're like, oh, well, we should only have certain selected people highly qualified for the position controlling the lives of everyone else. As here's the thing with choosing professionals. Sure, you might choose to hire the professional to build your house or fix your house, but you can also do it yourself. That's an option too. It's usually expensive.
Puniti.
Puniti HMK Films. Like it's usually. Well, actually, it's usually cheaper. You got to buy the materials, and it costs you time because you got to learn how to do it. But if you're going to equate government systems to free market capitalism, because sure, you could hire someone intelligent. You could hire an absolute idiot. You could hire someone who has no specialty, or You can learn to do it yourself and do it yourself. Where's that option in government? Where's that option for self-governance? There really isn't one, is there? Well, I suppose that you can hold yourself up in a bunker and say, don't tread on me, and go all ANCAP. But you aren't going to have a monopoly on force. Like, sad as it may be, the strongest individual on the planet, the most militarily capable, combat-trained, physically adept human being on the entire planet, who's going to be a man, because that's just how biology works, they are not likely to have the option of self-governance and then interact with everyone else with an equal footing. I mean, the closest you get is screwing off to the middle of the woods and just doing the bare minimum for society, doing the bare minimum to the person who technically owns you. But realistically, you don't have the option of self-governance. You need to pick someone else. So without the ability to say, screw you, I'm going on my own, there needs to be consequences. So when you have a small group of elite commanding the vast majority of the population, 80%, okay, how are they kept in check? Where's the consequences for them? We'll see if you get into that. I'm suspecting you won't. But I could be wrong. I'm open to that. Also, SCE, am I enjoying these videos that magically disappeared? I think enjoying is a very strong word to describe it. But at the very least, I seem to have an audience for my analysis of them. So I am enjoying the content that they bring.
All the shades of gray as opposed to the black and white. You don't want complete universal suffrage, but you also don't want voting so limited that only a couple people can do it, because then you get a tyranny monopoly there.
That's the thing. Let's say you do have that tyrannical monopoly, because here's the issue. When you only have a set number of, say, contractors, and you're the one who gets to decide which one business does your stuff, when they screw up your house, you get to go after that one business, right? You get to single out the individual that screwed your life, or the company that screwed your life, and you get to get reparations, let's call it, from them. How are you going to do that with a group of elites? How would you get that? I'm going to bet it'd be quite difficult to get those reparations from that group of elites if they're all like, well, we'll screw over 80% of the population, but we hold the majority of power. It's kind of like finding out that the person who robbed your house is a cop. Who are you going to go to? The police? No, you have to deal with it yourself. Again, Tree of Liberty. But let's keep going.
And so we want our voters to be very selective, and I think the best way to go about this is to make voting not a right. Voting is not a right. Rights are things that you cannot do, or rights are things that government cannot do. Like governments cannot take away your right to protect yourself. Governments cannot
Governments can do that. I'm sorry, but if you think you have rights, I'm sorry, you don't. You have privileges. They call it rights because you're supposed to have it never be able to taken away from you. Okay, but say the government does, then what? Say the government says, yeah, you might think you were protecting yourself, but we're just going to throw you in prison anyway, and if you resist, we have a monopoly on power, so we're going to get rid of you. It's like, okay. They can do that. If they can do that, then they're not inalienable rights, because they can be taken away. They are privileges. If you're not going to punish the government for violating that social contract, congratulations. you have absolutely nothing protecting you from them.
Search you without a warrant. Governments cannot restrict your free speech. Those are rights. Rights are always a negative. Rights are not a positive. A positive is just some made up shit that's likely been made up to justify welfare, to justify mass theft, particularly on men's money, but also on some women's money, because sometimes women are net taxpayers.
Yeah, and sometimes a coin will land perfectly on its side and stay there. Sometimes it happens. But, you know, you're going to undermine your entire argument to appease the, 1% of the female population? Maybe 5%? I don't know the exact numbers. But it sure as heck ain't double digits.
Well, it's not too rare. But basically what you want to do is you want to make voting a curse. It's what responsibilities are you going to have to take up in order for you to earn the right to vote. Otherwise, again, if you are not cursed when you vote, if you are not made liable for making mistakes, you will just repeat those mistakes. Like if you were in a car and you crash into someone's car and your parents paid for a new car, well, time to crash another one because I didn't pay for that mistake. I didn't have any sort of responsibility there, so why not just keep doing what I'm doing? And now a couple of those have been already brought up. Like one of the curses that...
So you're not going to actually, come on, get into it. What curses are we going to inflict upon voters that, they won't just vote themselves out of?
We already have is men going to the draft. Now, the problem with that is that curse can only apply to men. Women cannot take up the draft. Women are not as aggressive. Women are not as strong, and so they will never be as effective fighters as men are. So we can't have that for them. So if we wanted women to vote, we'd have to think of an equal curse. Now, I think this curse should apply equally to men and women. I don't know what specific curse can be laid upon women. Maybe someone in the comment section can think of that. And
in the comment section of a video that you have since deleted. Yeah, good luck getting a solution there. But we'll see what you say, and then maybe I'll have my own idea to toss at you.
Well, create a discussion with that. But something that should be applied to everybody is you can't be on welfare if you're going to vote. I think that's a pretty obvious one. I think some other people have said that. And, well...
Yeah, the net taxpayer thing. And here's the thing. If you were actually going with net taxpayer, you would basically be excluding any employee of the government. Like, if someone's paycheck is primarily paid by taxpayer dollars, then, yeah, they are a non-net taxpayer. It doesn't matter how much they pay in taxes. It doesn't matter whether their supposed tax benefits are higher than the amount, are less than the amount that they pay, because guess what? Their entire paycheck is welfare. School teachers, people who get money from grants, like anyone who your primary income is essentially laundered taxpayer money, yeah, you shouldn't get you're a non-net taxpayer. You're a non-net taxpayer. And that's most women. Most women would not have jobs were it not for the taxes of men paying the bill for them. Even in the corporate world. Because most of the time, why do they have women on? Well, either a legal requirement or a tax break. So as far as I'm concerned, that means that the woman is being paid by the tax break. Well, let's continue. Maybe he's got something else here.
Because it's a conflict of interest. And I'm not going to repeat any more of that because I've already said it. But basically those are the two big things. You have to be someone who is liable for the draft. And I think I like Charlie Monkey's idea on that, where it's if you want to vote for president, you have to vote for the draft. If you want to vote for Congress, you can't be a net tax, or you can't be a welfare recipient. Now, that could be an initial idea. The problem with things that are more complex like that, and instead of making it one sort of group set of things you have to do, is that if it's this specific here, this specific there, it becomes too complicated and the message doesn't really get received well. So it may be the case that if you're going to vote, you have to take all these recursions upon you and then you vote for everything, as opposed to if you want this, you get that. If you want that, you get that, and so on and so forth. But we have to start thinking about those things. We have to start limiting voting rights again. We have to start making this small group.
We have to start limiting voting rights. How are you going to do that? The majority of voters don't agree with limiting voting rights. In fact, they want them expanded. You don't have the power. Don't have a mechanism to the power. Heck, we know that the people in charge would sooner see the country burn to the ground than surrender their power. Because guess what? The people who really run the country, they are not invested in the success of the country. This is like, it's like a business that you've invested a bunch of money into. If you have your fingers in a whole bunch of investments, you don't necessarily care whether an individual investment collapses. You don't care whether an individual business folds. It's like, well, I've got a whole bunch of other businesses that will get to cannibalize the business that just fell apart. So I'm going to win regardless of success or failure. It's just a matter of how much I'm going to win by and for how long. What are my thoughts on a universal sales tax as the only tax? I'll admit, I have not put any serious thought into that idea. It's interesting, but I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure what a valid form of taxation would be. Like, if there's anything that is even remotely possible to be fair. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I honestly don't know. Well, let's continue and wrap this one up.
Or this smaller group of the minority of smart people to start making these decisions for us, and that's how we get to a freer society. Now, certainly, if we want to take it to its ultimate end, I've mentioned before in other videos, I do not like government at all, and I wish we had none of it. I wish nobody had the right to vote. I wish nobody had.
You don't like government and wish we had none of it. Okay, so at this point, at the very least, you're ANCAP, which means you're an idiot. Because, quite frankly, you wish you had no government? Okay. All your everything is going to belong to the person in your local vicinity who has the most power. Because they're going to take it from you. And what are you going to do? You're a vegan yoga instructor at this point. Nowadays, vegan ex-yoga instructor, and now you're an ex-vegan ex-yoga instructor YouTuber who still looks like a vegan yoga instructor. Yet you're not going to be able to defend your shit worth squat. You want no government? You basically saying, hey, whoever's strong can come take my shit. Society is a game. We all agree to follow the rules under the assumption that everyone else is going to follow those rules. And what happens when enough people realize, hey, the people running the game aren't following the rules? Well, that's when people start walking away from the game. And much like any live service video game these days, when enough people walk away from the game, when enough revenue suppliers walk away from the game dies. Or in this case, the society. And then when that dies, unlike a game where it just disappears and everyone goes away, in society, that just means the rules go away. The consequences go away. And then you'll get to see what happens when people aren't restrained by rules and they're put under a lot of pressure.
And to vote. But we are not in a society that's so perfect, and while we are dealing with things that are imperfect, we have to think of the best possible system, and so far, universal suffrage has only made things worse. We should not be giving everybody the right to vote. It should be very, very hard to vote, and anybody who has the right to vote should be cursed with some type of responsibility, and certainly you should be...
some type of responsibility. Yeah, you know what that responsibility was? Like, because here's the thing. Why vote? Why allow for votes anyway? Why not just go right back to the feudal monarchy system? Because guess what? Then the consequences are, yeah, there is one person at the top, maybe a small handful of people at the top that are responsible, and the consequences for them screwing up is an angry mob. Yeah, that that system ain't looking so archaic nowadays, is it? But let's keep going.
Adult. And really, the word adult means that you can actually take care of yourself. And so that means you're not on welfare, because if you're on welfare, you cannot take care of yourself.
Hey, manic, like, I have a very diverse audience of, I think, 100% men. So video games are, at the very least, the analogy that I could put forward. Hopefully it makes sense to most people, because, I don't know, I guess it would be like a business where all your investors pull out, for those of you who are able to invest in stocks or get to care about that kind of stuff. I know that there's at least one millionaire in here. Probably more than one, but keep your money tight, guys. Don't make yourself a high value target and all that good stuff. All right, wrap this up.
You are not living with your parents or things like that. And you are someone who's able to, well, basically clean up your own mess. And if you can't clean up your own mess, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. You can live in a society perfectly fine. You can still enjoy all the privileges of America, but you should not be able to vote if you are not able to clean up after yourself, or if you're not willing to clean up after yourself.
And you're assuming that voting matters, because yeah, what happens if voting doesn't matter then? What happens if the vote is whatever the politicians say the vote is? So I'm moving this because I'm not liking how the head tracking is going. There. Put it into a slightly better position, because it looks like I'm looking off to the side all the time, and really I'm meant to be looking here. Anyway.
And so I will leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you like this video, please hit the like button. That lets me know to make more content like this. You can also hit the subscribe button. That would be a huge help. And
you're going to have to do that on this channel if you want more of this particular content. Because, yeah, this content's deleted from Sean's channel. So, I'm basically the only option you have right now. Unless someone else wants to do a review series of this, which I'd be curious. I would admittedly be curious to see someone else's take on Sean's old content.
And if you have anything to add, this is a topic I'm very, very interested in. So I'm very, very interested in hearing what people have to say about, maybe what types of limits we can put on people who are voters. What types of responsibilities can we have them take up? Because I don't think that just the draft and just net tax paying is the only thing we can think of. And the more complex we make this, the more relevant we make this to actual responsibilities, actual consequences of society, the better votes we'll get, or the better things we'll get in our country.
Oh, in that case, let's put this out. Make their names, faces, and addresses public, and they are not allowed to have private security. How about that? That way, if you really don't like what someone is doing to you and your people politically, well, you have information on where they are. I think that'd be interesting, because right now, well, the government, the people in charge of you, they've got all your information. They know where you live. But the people who you're screwing over, they have no idea who you are. Maybe that's an idea. Maybe make it so that you're actually somewhat accountable to the public, instead of being able to hide in a gated community with a whole bunch of armed security guards at all times. I'm willing to bet politicians and prominent influencers of the vote, they might think twice about screwing over large quantities of people if they understood that, they know where I live and I'm not allowed to protect myself from them.
So, well, that's it. Thanks for listening, and I will see you again next time.
All right. So that was episode 15. pull up episode 16, but let's have a brief intermission here.
The scientific method.
Oh yeah, this meme. The good old days of the internet when Shia LaBeouf on a green screen was actually considered a meme. Heck, this isn't even the good old days. This is just the slightly less shitty days. But brief intermission, and I keep getting requests for some kind of intermission music. So let's see about pulling some up real quick. What do we got here? Something that's a couple minutes that I actually liked. All right, we'll try this one. Bit of synthwave while I step out and change out my drink. So, all right, we'll be back. Let's see how this sounds. Yeah, of course, my mic was muted. Sorry about that. Professionalism at its finest. But yes, that was software from Ava. Sorry, that was music courtesy of Ava. Been generating a bunch of compositions with AI generated software and figured, hey, I technically own all of it. I can't copyright strike me for stuff I've made with AI and bought the rights to, so. Well, hopefully you guys can hear some stuff now. I forgot to put that. All right. Yeah, better than silence. Yeah, definitely an improvement on that. I'm gonna have to arrange a bunch of these into an intermission playlist. But for now, we shall resume with Think Before You Sleep's archives. This one, archived episode 16. Get it done. Let us begin.
The scientific method is the most effective method we have in terms of finding the truth. And that's its whole purpose, is to take this thing I believe and we test it. I believe this, that's my hypothesis, and usually you want your hypothesis based on a educated guess. You're not going to just test things randomly, so
I'm pretty sure that science is more about explaining natural phenomenon in a more objective way by removing human bias. It's not necessarily about testing belief. People believe in all sorts of things that you can't test or verify. But not even 20 seconds in, and he's already shoved out something that he clearly doesn't understand in depth. See how long it takes before he has another bad take.
I know all these things about this field, and I believe this. Let's see if it is true or not true. You confirm your hypothesis, or it becomes unconfirmed. What people often do is they will sit there and say, I know this is correct, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to design the study in a way that will make me find this data is true, and I'm going to prove myself right.
Yeah, I know. No, they don't know. They believe that something is correct. Or heck, they might even know that it's wrong, but they're like, you know what? No, I need to convince other people that something is correct. Therefore, I'm going to create an argument in such a way that they will believe that what I'm saying is objective. Which, so far as I'm concerned, that is what makes modern day science a religion. Because you have qualified people, quote unquote, who are the modern priests. You have the modern, quote unquote, scientists and experts. And they are the ones who tell you what data means. They're the ones who tell you how the world works. And they will selectively cite sources in order to back it up. As far as that, like, how is that any different from a priest selectively choosing passages from the Bible to make their particular worldview seem like God's will? How is that any different? I don't see the difference. Like, anyone who claims science is superior to religion because if it's subjective, no. That argument has been lost in modern science. In the modern world, the idea of science being objective, that ship has sailed. Because nowadays it is not. Maybe in its purest essence it was. But at that point, you're basically making the same arguments that religious people have made in the age of freaking TV shysters and corrupt religious officials. Only 40 seconds in, and already a whole bunch of bullshit. But let's keep going. Let's keep going.
That's one of the things that's going on a lot in the social science fields, is that people are having that problem, is that people want to either...
Or, just the science fields in general. But this is 2019. Maybe it hadn't quite infected that far. It's 4 years ago. I can't remember the details. I'll be honest. The past decade's more or less a blur of insanity.
For their own reasons, or because they need to publish, and if they don't publish, they get fired, or publish or perish mentality. Or maybe they're just incompetent. But it happens quite a bit that people set their conclusions and they just work to find the conclusions, as opposed to the actual scientific question, Is this a thing that's real? Is it a thing that's not real? And let's see if it's true based off these measures. And I think a big problem for that, and I mentioned this before in one of my other videos, is that the only way you're going to get this to work is if you have direct liability for being wrong. Like, cars work extremely well because if they're wrong, people don't buy the car.
Yeah, well, religion has that. Because if your religious takes are wrong, people stop attending your church. People stop attending your church, there goes your finances from your collection donors, and all the tax breaks in the world aren't going to save you if you have no income. So, religion has it, but science... Oh, right. The scientific principles of the modern day, they're controlled by the government and large corporations. Yeah. Wonder if it's a curiosity. Sorry, wonder if it's a coincidence, pure coincidence, that modern day science seems to support large corporations and the government. Surely that's because they're objectively true, and it's not corruption due to financial incentives. Let's call it that.
Or if they're wrong, people die and they get sued. And so what might happen is that you have a Model T back in the 1920s or so, and that Model T can go off roads, but if it goes off road too much, it hits a couple rocks, the axle breaks, you're fucked. Now you've got a broken car that can't get back to civilization. And so they say, okay, we've had this problem of the car breaking, and we've isolated to the axle because we've done all these tests, and let's start to create a methodology that will fix the axle. And so what they do is they say, I think this will fix it. So let me put this little part here that's going to reinforce it, and that's going to make it able to crash into this rock without breaking. And of course, what they're going to do afterwards is crash into a couple rocks and test it. And they're going to crash.
No. First, they're going to run computer simulations. It is very expensive to do an actual crash test with an actual vehicle. They're going to run simulations first. They're not going to just make the prototype and then immediately start running it into things. Which, hey, is probably a good thing because it is way faster and more efficient to create a computer simulation to find out whether or not something fails, find what is most likely to succeed, and then test it out in the real world, rather than, putting every harebrained scheme on the manufacturing process. Oh, God. Fucking pricey. Okay, Lord, wait, what? You talking to me or him? Because, jeez, how many bad takes? 2 minutes, 20 seconds, and we've already had to stop to just analyze this bull several times over. Yeah, let's keep going. This is a 20-minute video, guys. I'm trying not to make this a 1-hour review thing, but jeez.
Crash it at different angles, and they're gonna literally sit there and try to break the thing on purpose. Like, if you play a video game and you're testing a video game, your job is to break the video game. Is do all these weird things, things that players would do, things that players wouldn't do, and you're trying to make the game not work. That way, the team who's working on the game can go back and fix all the errors.
Well, nowadays, you just call it a beta and have your players be your testers, which to a certain extent makes sense because, like, if you have even 1,000 people playing your video game in beta able to submit bug reports versus what? You're going to hire 1,000 people to beta test? I mean, even if you were just paying them $7 an hour, that's still $7,000 an hour for beta testing, which, heck, with modern beta releases, people will pay you for that. So, I can't tell whether it's just 2019 or whether he is that massively out of touch. Surely early access games were a thing in 2019. It's not that long ago.
And that's how you make good science. You say, I have this this problem, or I have this theory. Let's test to see if it works. And I say, oh, hey, my study said it works. And so once I find out a theory that it's working, it's statistically significant, I can say, okay, what are all the things that would make my study fail? And let's test it against all those things. And let me get my friend over here. He's got some different opinions on this, and he hates this idea. So let me find him. Let's see if he can attack my idea over and over again. If it still succeeds, then we'll call it a good idea. Whereas if you do your actual problem or your video game problem, you have this broken part, or you have this new fix, you test against everything. Maybe you can take that axle and take a baseball bat too. See how many times you can hit it with a baseball bat and see if that works. How durable is this thing? That's how real science is done. But the problem is that most science is not done like that. Most science is,
Well, straight up. You know why most science isn't done like that? There is no money in disproving people. There is no money in discovering that, oh, hey, yeah, this thing we already thought was true. We verified it's still true. No, there's no money in that. What there is money in is discovering something new. Because that allows you to sell a new product, push a new idea. That's where the money can be made. There is no money in proving that, yes, the earth is round. It's still round. Yes, water is still water. Yes. Oh, hey, we have reconfirmed that you need to eat food to live. Yes. I mean, I don't know any decent examples off the top of my head. But, jeez. This is when we need chronic, we have reconfirmed that there are a small number of errors every time a cell divides in the DNA code. Yes, that has been reconfirmed. There is still no truly perfect replication. Yes. There's no money in that, because verifying what people already believe to be true, there's no new opportunities there. There's no money in there. So people don't finance that. Instead, you need to find something else that people can market, or something else that the government's willing to give you a handout for. That's where there's money in. So scientists aren't going to bother testing someone else's hypothesis unless they're confident that they can prove it 100% wrong and turn some kind of profit off of it, usually at the behest of some kind of corporation. Think about this. Imagine if aspirin didn't actually work. Pharmaceutical companies in competition with aspirin would be all over that. But there's no money in proving that, yes, aspirin works. Let's keep going.
Let's do this one study. Let's never repeat it. Let's never have it cited. And people start to take that like fact. People say, oh, hey, I found this one study that says this thing I believe, so this is true. And that's not how science actually works. There's a certain methodology to it. And it's important that you get this right, because if you don't get it right, well, then people will start to create models of things and put them into law, or put them into schools, or put them into businesses. They'll start to create these models based off your psychology that doesn't work, or your methodology that doesn't work.
You mean like gender being a societal construct? Sorry, just throwing that in there. Let's keep going.
And they'll fail, which has been happening quite a lot over at least the past 50 years or so. And there's a really great video I'll link in the description by Jordan Peterson where he talks about some of this stuff. And he talks about more than the one I'm going to talk about, but this is the one I understand the most, which is emotional IQ. But he has a couple other models out there.
Emotional IQ? Sorry, I got to back up and listen to exactly what he said there, because it sounds like he believes in something that is complete bullshit. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's just 10 seconds back, try that again.
Where he talks about some of this stuff, and he talks about more than the one I'm going to talk about, but this is the one I understand the most, which is emotional IQ. But he has a couple other models out there that are really well taught in schools, really well taught in government organizations, but they're just simply not true. It's like that Duluth model of abuse. It's like you have these radical feminists who hate men, and they admit that one of them, I think it was Elizabeth Pence, admitted that she lied about the research. And it doesn't matter because the Duluth model is already in. It's already in the courts. It's already the standard. And so that model is that men abuse women 100% of the time, and all women are always victims. And every time there's a domestic dispute, the man always has to be arrested. And so that's a big problem. In terms of the Jordan Peterson review I'm referencing, he talks a lot about EQ, and I'm quite interested in that topic because I've heard a lot of people dismiss IQ, which is a working test, a test that's been used for decades, a test that's been used to help find mental disorders, a test that's been used to help define aptitude in the workplace. So we can take your IQ number and say, okay, you're going to be good at this job, or you're likely to be at this job, this job, this job, or hey, your IQ is a little low, why don't you stay to these jobs, or hey, your IQ is quite high, why don't you challenge yourself and put yourself over here, because that's where you'll be of most use.
And that's the thing. At most use. Because at the end of the day, that is what it's about. Where are you most useful? Not what will most benefit you. No. Where are you most useful to someone else? How are you as a tool best used? Well, we'll see whether he actually has a point with this EQ rather than just rambling on about the intention of an IQ test.
And people have this criticism that IQ is, it's culture specific. IQ is only for rich white men, and that's all it works for. It's like, have you ever taken an IQ test? Because IQ tests can be given to like toddlers and shit. Like as long as you have some way of recognizing a pattern, you can be IQ tested.
This is my personal thing with IQ tests. Not having taken one. I might have taken one, but I can't quite remember. But here would be my issue. Do you know the thing with IQ tests? You can get copies of them. You can study them. You can study for an IQ test. Are you going to do better on a test that you have studied for? I would say yes. So, I'm willing to bet that if you went and was like, hey, do people who study for IQ tests do better than people who don't study for IQ tests? Like, what if you're going to give someone an IQ test and they go, oh yeah, you know what? I've seen this question before. I understand it. I know that this is the answer. Could I come to that thought independently? No, but I studied it. Now, I've done entirely blind and with a bunch of questions that you know the person doesn't know the answers to already. Now, maybe it would have some validity. But you have people literally being tutored in this kind of stuff. The brain can be trained to get any sort of questions accurate, can it not? By all means, chat. Like, let me know if I'm completely like off the wall here, but I don't really think that an IQ test is an accurate assessment of, well, what is it even assessing? Intelligence? What is intelligence as defined by the IQ test? Pattern recognition? But can you test pattern recognition for something that is standardized, and not only standardized, but studyable? And even if someone is good at pattern recognition, that, like, imagine if you had, for example, a software program that was really good at making predictions about, like, what's the weather going to be tomorrow? What's it looking at? Well, the weather data of the past. Well, what if you had a software program that was super accurate at predicting weather patterns in a specific region, but then you ask it, okay, well, what about this region that you have no data on whatsoever? It's probably not going to understand. It's not going to be able to make an accurate prediction. Does that mean that it's stupid? No. It just has no prior data to work with. Maybe I'm getting lost in the metaphor here. I hope he's not running off on me too much. Well, at least they seem to have fairly intelligent people in chat, so I'll be thankful. Rather have a small intelligent audience than a huge dumb one, but let's keep going. Jeez, we're only like a quarter of the way through this.
And so culture has nothing to do with it. And it's great because we want modalities like that. Where can we fit you? So if you want to really fit properly, you would want to take an IQ test so far, and maybe you take a big 5 aspects test to know what your personality temperament is. And the more we get that, the more people will be put in useful places, the more society will work and function. And so all these commenters that I've seen around that crap on IQ are always talking about this great thing called emotional intelligence, EQ.
I'm pretty sure that IQ, correct me if I'm wrong, stands for intelligence quotient. EQ would therefore stand for emotional quotient. If you were going to say, well, it stands for emotional intelligence, then you would call it EI, which up in Canada is usually code for the special needs program. So maybe that's why they don't call it EI.
This is great. It just rips the shit out of IQ. If you want to be successful in business, you need this thing called EQ. And it's always suspicious to me because people will say, well, they don't like measurements or things like that, and that's why they don't like IQ. It's racist or something like that. Any sort of thing that's actually scientific is just wrong. It's like the best way to attack somebody if you know you're wrong, if you know you don't have any ground to stand on, it's just to sit there and berate their ideas and say, no, that's not it, and not listen to any sort of, well, what about this, and this? No, that's wrong. I don't have any reason against it, so I'm just going to say it's wrong. And that's kind of the argument back against IQ that I'll get, and they'll always bring up EQ. I just took a little break to make sure my information about EQ was correct, and I made sure to look up the...
Oh my god, this is the first time he's actually stopped the video to go and make sure that he's presenting accurate information. Wow. Okay, milestone here. Like, what, 13 episodes in? Also, Mr. Pliskin, who's smarter, the guy who does take the IQ test, or the guy who recognizes it's highly flawed and doesn't bother? Oh. Honestly, what about the guy who takes the IQ test, gets an understanding of it, and then is like, okay, this is what certain people will think of me by this metric, but I understand that this is not going to encompass on a large general scale. Therefore, while I have an understanding of this, I'm still going to remain humble enough to realize that I'm going to have blind spots. Like, personally, the person who takes the IQ test and then uses that to laud some sort of position of superiority, they are a fool. Straight up, I'd call them a fool to their face. Whereas a person who doesn't take the IQ test, but is able to rationalize their thoughts and ideas to me in a way that I can understand, regardless of whether or not I agree with them, I'd still think they're more intelligent. Let's keep going. Let's see what he has to say about EQ, which is the whole reason why he went into this IQ side tangent.
Duluth model thing, and it was Ellen Pence, not Elizabeth Pence, who was the person who admitted she lied about the research of the Duluth model. But anyway, back to emotional intelligence or EQ. The big part of that Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. Don't correct your video. Don't go back and re-edit. Don't even put in a little caption saying that you're wrong. No. Just acknowledge that you're wrong later on, and just keep going. Yeah, don't recut, don't redo. But Maybe he gets better in later videos, but like when I've literally seen better examples the better part of a decade ago for like amateur reviewers, like this is some amateur level shit, Sean. Amateur, like beyond amateur level shit. To not even put a correction in on your video. But hey, you're all about deleting your shameful past to not acknowledge that you were ever wrong in the first place, so it's hardly surprising.
Peterson video is he was talking about if you EQ is a psychological questionnaire, and if you have a questionnaire, what happens as far as they've researched is that you can take it and put it against whatever you're trying to measure psychologically. You can pit it against the big 5 aspects test, and it will just show up as a marker for one of the big 5 traits.
For no reason. Okay, if you have a 5-gallon jug and a 3-gallon jug, and you want to measure out 4 gallons, how many jugs do you have? Yeah, that's honestly, I've seen that. Haven't ever looked up the solution because it's one of those interesting thought problems. Best thing, but if you just have the 2, you want to measure out 4. There's a couple interesting ways to do it, but like at the very least, you're going to pour, like you're going to fill up. I'd say you'd fill up the 5-gallon one first. Then you'd pour it into the 3-gallon. Then you dump out the 3-gallon, so you just have the 2-gallon left in the 5-gallon. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the solution to that one, but it's a fascinating thought experiment. So we'll just keep going because honestly, I could be on that one for a while. Do I know the solution? No, but that's exactly why I don't like IQ tests, because you give that kind of question. I think the true value is in being able to rationalize out the answer with the data presented. Because if you're like, oh, hey, well, I've seen this question before, and this is the exact process. Like, congratulations, you can repeat something that you've heard. That doesn't mean that you could rationalize it out from scratch. But we'll continue for now.
And the way EQ plans out is that it's a marker for agreeableness. And what they're essentially saying, if the EQ is going to make you successful at business, you're saying that being agreeable makes you a successful business person, which is not true. And that's a model that's being represented.
Yeah, no, being agreeable is not being successful. Many of the times the people who I hear are very successful business people. They make a lot of money. They have to be assholes. They absolutely need to be assholes. Why? Well, because you need to be able to do stuff that other people find unpleasant and get them to comply despite, they'd much rather you not do stuff. I don't want to get into too specific an example because it is somewhat geographically relevant. But you need to be willing to say, no, you can't have this for free. You need to pay, and no, you are screwing around with what is mine, and you are going to compensate me for such a thing, or you are going to cease using it. This isn't like business is not about making people happy. It is about maximizing as much as you can from people while expending a minimum amount of effort and finding a compromise between the two. Learning how to make people happy is not a universal business skill. Can it be useful in it? Sure, but it is not the defining characteristic of whether or not you're going to be successful.
By quite a lot of people that I've known. Because if you want to be successful in business, one, you should have a high IQ. That always helps.
No, I've met and heard of plenty of stupid people who do very well in business. Maybe they have a high IQ, But then I hear the stories about how they run shit, and I wonder, how did this person manage to secure this much money to run this kind of a business when a basic concept such as preventative maintenance is just seemingly beyond them? So, no, straight up, you don't need a high IQ to run a successful business. I'd say that if I had to say what is more essential to running a successful business, a large amount of startup cash or a high level of intelligence, I'm going to point at the high level of startup cash and say, nah, there's more people who just had a bunch of money and got lucky than there are intelligent people who started off poor.
Unfortunately, your IQ is, as far as we know, it's set. It's like your height. So, you can't make yourself grow taller by eating more food or by reading more books. You're as tall as you're going to be, and that's about it. So as far as we know, IQ is like that, and there's nothing we can do to raise it so far. Hopefully we will, because I think the more intelligent people get, the better things get. Because the more complex ideas people can understand, the less they'll believe bullshit. And
yeah, I don't know how much that correlates to being able to make money. I've been told by a lot of people I'm intelligent. Don't have a six-figure salary. Meanwhile, I've heard that people who are experts, who are being paid in specific fields, they're dumber than me. I'm admittedly very confused, but that's the thing. Is like, am I just dumb in the field of making a shit ton of money? Or is perhaps intelligence not the primary definer of whether or not you make a lot of cash? Or heck, maybe by this time next year I'll be making six figures and I'm just in a slump right now. Who knows? Who knows? In the land of capitalism, you're only a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. I don't know. I know Pliskin's got a shit ton of cash. He probably knows the answer better than I do. Let's keep going.
that's probably going to be through genetic re-engineering, or it's going to be through AI or something like that to make people smarter. I don't know if there's much that we can do with the
AI making people smarter? Oh yeah, ChatGPT writing people's homework and then professors can't tell the difference. I mean, who's smarter? The person who writes the essay themselves or the person who gets an AI to write the essay for them and then takes the credit? Who's really smarter, gentlemen? I don't know. These days, I don't know. The metric of what makes a person intelligent seems to be pretty fluid.
current technology that we have right now. But hopefully in the future, we'll figure that out. So obviously you want a high IQ and you want to be disagreeable, because if you're too agreeable, if you say yes to everything, then they might just say, okay, well, we'd love to hire you on for whatever job this is, and we're going to pay you $10 an hour, and you're going to say, great, $10 an hour sounds fine. But they would have paid you 15. And so it takes that disagreeable person to say, no, I deserve 15 and I won't work here unless I get paid 15 to actually get paid that. So if you're always saying yes to everything, you're never going to say no at the right times, and you'll make less money for that. So disagreeability is certainly important. It's certainly important.
Okay, but that's the thing. Like, if you're going to, like, okay, so let's go with emotional intelligence. What EQ supposedly means. EQ meaning, oh, you're agreeable to stuff? That seems stupid. Like, if I was to say, okay, what is emotional intelligence? That is understanding how far you can push somebody. Like, knowing the difference between a person who you can be very disagreeable with and still get a positive interaction out of, versus a person who absolutely needs to have their ego flattered before they'll give you a positive reaction. To pull an example out of a video game, because that's the best thing off the top of my head, Dragon Age Origins. There's one character, Sten, who you need to be an asshole to for him to respect you. Everyone else, if you give like some of the nice, pleasant answers, agreeable ones, they'll like you. Sten, however, you need to be an asshole and put your foot down with him. Otherwise, he won't respect you and he'll actually dislike you. Understanding the difference between those, that's what I'd say would be emotional intelligence. There's some people who just won't respect you unless you clap back at them. Unless you're willing to stand up and say, hey, buddy, no, fuck you too. Oh, there goes the monetization for this sketch. So, yeah. I mean, we're in agreement that people don't need to be agreeable. But if you're going to equate emotional intelligence with being agreeable, either emotional intelligence is beyond stupid, which it very well could be, or you're a fool for thinking that understanding someone's emotions means that you are agreeable to them. That's appeasement. That's what women do. They don't care about the long-term consequences. They just don't want any negative experiences or negative emotions in their life. But let's go on. We're not even halfway through this. This is going to be a long one.
Important to getting management positions, because you're going to, when you start leading people, a lot of people are going to want to push you in certain directions, and a lot of those directions are wrong. And what do they know? They're not leaders. So you have to be able to say no to those people, but also know how to say yes to the right people, which is kind of a hard balance, which is why those people get paid so much when they're successful. In the last kind of thing, let's put this as a final topic for today, and this is kind of the main topic of the video, which is conscientiousness. And I want to throw this in here because I've had a lot of experience building conscientiousness, because I wasn't particularly like that when I was younger. And if you don't know what that term means, it's basically, it's a combination of these things called this thing called orderliness and industriousness. So orderliness is how organized am I? Industriousness is how much willpower do I have? And that kind of leads to, if I put those things together, it leads to what's the best possible way I can organize something, or the best possible way I can design something so that somebody else would like it, whether that's me in the future or it's some customer or something like that. You have to be able to.
How much somebody else would like it? That's a very weird way to phrase that metric. Liking something? No, people can have an emotional approval of something, which is what I would think of as liking it. But you're not trying to get people to like your stuff. You're trying to convince people to part with their money for your stuff. If you design a product and people hate it, okay, but are they still paying for it? What comes to mind is bitter medicine. People don't like how bitter medicine tastes. But if it's effective, they will still pay for bitter medicine over a medicine that they might like taking, but is essentially a placebo. At least some people will. Again, you're going to get different customers. Some people will just pay for the nice tasting placebo. And some people will pay for stuff that doesn't work. Rhino horn, I understand. I know some parts of Southeast Asia, yeah, rhino horn is a cold remedy. Or an illness remedy in general. You pay out the butt for something that you then have to spend hours grinding into a paste and then drink. It's like, congratulations. You basically just drank liquid ground up fingernail. But because it came from a rhinoceros, you think that it's actually good. So, yeah, no, people don't have to like something. They just have to be convinced that it is something that they need. Whether or not they like it is irrelevant to how much they think they need it.
Design things to other people's needs, otherwise people will not buy products from you. So that's essential to success, and it's essential to everybody's success. If you want people to like you, conscientiousness is certainly a thing to build. Of course, you don't want to be overly conscientious, like you don't want to be overly whatever. And so if you ever take one of those big 5 tests, and you test all the way at the end of one, like you test all the way at the end of introverted, and by the way, the layers are introverted versus extroverted, conscientious versus not conscientious, agreeable versus disagreeable, neurotic versus not neurotic, and open or not open. So if you're really off in one end on one of those, it's helpful to learn some of the skills of the other side. So if you're really disagreeable, you should probably learn how to let things go a little bit, because if you never let anything go, people won't work with you. If you're really agreeable, you should probably learn to say no a little bit more, because otherwise people are just going to step all over you.
I like Neil Gaiman's definition of it. In fact, that there are 3 metrics that determine whether or not you get a job. Are you good? Do you deliver your stuff on time? Do people like you? You need 2 out of 3. You can be the best at your work and always deliver on time. And guess what? It doesn't matter if people like you or not. The only reason that you need people to like you is if you're either not that good or you're not on time. But if you're good and on time, it doesn't matter whether or not people like you, you're still going to get the job. You're still going to get the results you want. People liking you is an optional metric if you have enough skill and, I'm going to say, efficiency to meet the other 2 characteristics. But, if you're only good and you're consistently late and people don't like you, yeah, you're kind of screwed. Or if you're always on time but people don't like you and your work sucks, yeah, you're probably screwed as well. But, yeah, that's, it's not what conscientiousness means. I'll be honest, don't remember what he said conscientiousness means, but I got more tied up in his stuff on emotional intelligence. We'll just keep going for now. But if you guys want to drop the definition, hopefully the chat thing there picks it up, or I'll read it out if it looks interesting.
And so for someone who was not conscientious, someone who is not very hardworking, someone who's not very orderly, I have a lot of experience building this because I've been building it before I even knew what that is. Like, I've been knowing about these terms for maybe 2 years or so, but I've been building conscientiousness for about maybe 10 years without knowing what it's called. And basically what you do is you do the age-old thing. Is like, if you really have no idea how to fix this problem, all you do is be cleaner. So you start cleaning your room. Now, that's not just about picking things up off the floor, but it's also about maintenance. And so maybe you finish cleaning your room, so then you go to your car, and your car's dirty, so you clean that. But the car's a machine, and machines are always breaking down. So you could have a perfectly clean car, it could be perfectly washed on the outside, perfectly vacuumed, and all spruced up on the inside, but you turn the car on, and it's lit up like a Christmas tree. And so how about you do some maintenance? How about you change the oil? How about you change the spark plugs? How about you fix the brake pads? How about you take care of the check engine light? So that's all maintenance. And if you can get all that stuff right, well, then you can build orderliness and you can build conscientiousness. Because think of it this way. Pretend that your car, next week, someone else is going to have to drive your car. Do you want to be a person who just, here's the keys, go ahead and do as you will? Or is your car that kind of car that you have to explain to everybody? Well, you have to open the door up, you have to flip the latch this way and turn it over that way. And when you put the keys in the car, you got to flip them back and forth 3 times, otherwise it won't start. Are you going to have that kind of car? Or are you just going to have a car that you put the key in, it works, open the doors up, everything works great, AC works and all like that? And a lot of that stuff that's basic, that people leave broken in their cars for years, is really, really easy to fix. And very, very cheap to fix if you don't know how to fix it yourself, or it could just be YouTube. And so these are all things that you can handle. Or it could be something like this. And this is kind of a personal example. One of the things I do is I collect classic video games. And if you're collecting a game like, I'm looking at Final Fantasy VI right now because I've been playing that for the past couple weeks. And you have a game like that on Super Nintendo, those games are going to have save batteries because they didn't use flash memory like we use now to save data without constantly throwing electricity into the board. Now, those batteries last a very, very long time. They last about 15 years at minimum, and I've seen batteries that are saved batteries that have lasted since 1980s. Like I have a Zelda cartridge that still has a working battery, so that's phenomenal. But every so often they go out, and if they go out, you can't save. And there are a lot of games that are, especially on Super Nintendo, that are dependent on that. Some of them on 64 as well. Now, I've been able to replace all of mine, but I have a friend who doesn't know how to solder, who doesn't really have that much interest in learning how to solder or fixing some of this stuff, but he would really like it if his games worked. And so what I'm going to do is, I haven't done this yet, I've been waiting for the materials to show up, is I'm going to fix things. And so the problem with the battery is that eventually, it's going to be a long time, but eventually the battery will go out again. And so if for some reason he still has the game 20 years from now when he's 50 or so, and we're not friends anymore, maybe he's moved away, maybe he becomes a fucking asshole and we hate each other, I don't know, whatever happens, and I'm not around to solder the battery for him in place and he doesn't know how to do it, that game's going to remain broken.
Unless, someone offers a service to do such a thing. Like what you're describing there is a specialist in an economic situation. I would, I'm gonna check right now. I'm just gonna open up Google right now. Replace cartridge, save batteries. Let's see, service. Yeah, save game battery replacement service. Amazon, Nest save battery replacement kit. So, yeah, like there's online services, there's people who are saying, hey, I will do it for you if you send it to me and send me money. So guess what? He doesn't need to be your friend if he's an asshole. All he has to do is send the cartridge over to somebody as well as a bunch of money and they'll do it for him. He doesn't need you to do it for him. And quite frankly, if you're doing it and not charging him for it, then yeah, you're doing a favor to a friend. But when you charge for it, that's just another business. Solving something that people aren't specialized in or want to do themselves, yeah, that's the basis of economics. It's called specialization. But let's keep going here. Brain's starting to melt from this guy.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this is done correctly. I'm going to interpret his future needs. So if I solder the battery in for him today, it's only fixed for today. But what I can do is they make these little battery holders so that I can solder that into the motherboard, and then if he wants to put a new battery in, all he has to do is flip the coin battery out and put a new coin battery in. And it's really, really easy for anybody to do that. All you have to do is be able to open the game, take the thing apart, put the new battery in, put everything back together. No skill required. And so if I'm doing this for myself,
yeah, well, here's the thing. We know that is a absolutely terrible business model because basically every single large phone manufacturer has made their batteries increasingly difficult to replace. So, yeah, maybe that's conscientious, but it's certainly not profitable. Because guess what? We are getting more and more user-unfriendly tech every single year. And guess what? People still buy that shit. So, yeah, conscientiousness is not correlated with good business, or at least wealth creation. It might be nice, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get a lot of money for being nice. In fact, we see it almost inversely proportional. The more of an asshole you are to your customers, the more money you're going to make. Within certain limits, of course. Looking at you, Disney, and your freaking dumpster fire of an industry right now.
I know how to solder. I don't give a shit, so I'm just going to solder all my batteries in. It's a little bit less work for me. But if I'm going to be working for somebody else, if I'm going to take their needs into account, if I'm going to do this right and do it as correctly as possible, because that's what conscientious means, if I'm going to do this right, I'm going to make it as easy.
Conscientious is doing things as correctly as possible. I'm going to go look that up, and I'll admit, I don't really know how to spell conscientious off the top of my head. Did I spell it right there? Oh no, there's an S, I didn't think of it. guided by or in accordance with the dictates of conscience. Principled. Thorough and assiduous. Synonym diligent. I guess you could say that. What did he say? Back 10 seconds, re-listen to that.
Somebody else, if I'm going to take their needs into account, if I'm going to do this right and do it as correctly as possible, because that's what conscientious means.
In the abstract sense, I suppose that's correct.
If I'm going to do this right, I'm going to make it as easy and as user-friendly as possible. Let's not make Linux, let's make Windows. Let's make a very, very easy operating system. Let's, instead of having to...
Windows is an easy operating system. I mean, I guess relative to Linux, but if you can't go in, DIY, and understand what's going on, I wouldn't necessarily say it's easy, but I mean, among existing operating systems, it's probably the most user-friendly and accessible. So, okay, maybe he's got me there. Apple tends to lock their stuff up tighter than the wallet of certain demographics, but that's that's demonetizable worthy. So we'll just keep going.
Him having to resolder a battery, which is not going to learn. Let's make it so all he has to do is pick the battery up and put it in, just like for a remote. And so you start doing things like that. You start considering other people. You start trying to make things around you in your immediate environment beautiful. And after a bunch of years, because yes, this you can't just do it for a week. You have to do it. You're going to build a little bit. So if you've got like zero conscientiousness, if you have zero ability to work hard or zero ability to be orderly, yeah, doing stuff in the immediate week will help. But what you're really doing is you're trying to do this stuff long term. You're trying to make it so how can I make...
Are you going to charge more for it? Because if you are going to charge the exact same for soldering a new battery in versus ordering a battery case and then putting that in, either you're ripping the person off for resoldering the battery, or you're ripping yourself off for paying extra for the case and doing an additional service that you weren't asked to do.
Small changes that I can maintain for the rest of my life, and how can I maintain this cleanliness for years? So what that means, and this will be like a running theme of the channel, is that you just make things simple. If I'm going to clean my room, if I'm going to clean the area around me, if I'm going to clean my car, it needs to be simple enough that I can do it on a regular basis. So don't make it perfectly clean at the start. What'll happen is you'll make it cleaner. Maybe it's just like you've got a bunch of garbage on the floor. You'll pick the garbage off the floor and you'll just make sure the floor is clean so you can walk around without tripping over things. That's certainly a lot better than that not being done. And then at some point, you're going to get so good at cleaning up the floor that it won't be that bad. How about let's clean up the floor and let's do a little bit more? Because maybe before it was really inefficient for you to clean up stuff off the floor, but you got a little bit faster. So maybe it took you 10 minutes to do that originally, but now it takes you 5 minutes. So now you have 5 extra minutes to go work on something else. And if you can do this long enough, you will learn little tricks. Like one of the big tricks I learned for actually getting stuff done or actually being conscientious and making sure my work is finished is I get in certain modes. I say, you probably heard this when you were a kid. If you're going to play video games, you got to finish your homework first. And there's something very correct about that, because as soon as I play video games, if I play a video game that's good enough, I'm going to be so engrossed in that activity, I'm not going to want to do anything else. And so it's going to be very, very hard to rip myself out of that activity. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. So it's going to be very hard to rip myself out of that activity so I can go get the cleaning done, or so I can go get my...
Is that really conscience-based, though? Like, for example, I've got to grind out some stuff on Sea of Thieves to get a particular cosmetic I want. But I wanted to give you guys a Red Pill Cult meeting stream because I only get so many times to do that per week. Is it conscientious of me to do this stream and deny myself the video games? No. I don't think of that as conscientious. I think of that as, hey, this is something that, actually benefits me and a large number of other people. Meanwhile, playing a video game for a couple hours, not really something I need in my life or something that's going to help me in, heck, the short or long term. So, But if it's even just something like, oh, well, hey, I'm doing this to help myself, is that a conscious? Is that your conscience? Are you, do you have a conscience when you're doing stuff entirely for selfish motivations? That's a deeper philosophical question than I think this video is going to be answering, but 2 minutes to go, guys. 2 minutes to go.
I have a YouTube video done so I can go get my studying done that I do to make this content. So what I do is I get all that stuff.
You study to make this content? I mean, at this point, it sounds like you need to study a little bit more and make content a little bit less. But I'm pretty sure you'll get that advice for doing scripting stuff later. We'll see, because right now you're still flying off the cuff. You're still disorganized as hell. And in the modern day, 4 years later, you are still very non-receptive to criticism. So would you still describe yourself as conscientious, Sean, in the year 2023? And if so, who are you being conscientious towards? Because if this is conscientiousness coming from you right now in the modern day and age, was it your conscientiousness that made you delete all these videos to hide your past? Or was it just you wanting to make more in the algorithm, make more money, make more ad revenue, try to get some of that good old streamer money? Is that conscientious? Where you throw your core supporters under the bus to chase a whole bunch of new people who are going to forget about you as soon as the algorithm stops recommending you? I'm curious as to what you'd say to that. But I'm one of those smaller channels that you don't care about supporting. So I guess we're not going to find out.
Done first, like I'm doing that right now. I've got a bunch of stuff to do today. This is actually the earliest I've ever recorded a podcast.
Random Diddy, hey, why waste the deep philosophy? No, he's not listening. He does not care a lick about it. This philosophical stuff, that's for you guys. Dissecting this is for you guys, the chat, the people who are actually interested in this. Apparently enough of you to hang around and listen to me ramble for a couple hours about videos that have long since been deleted. He's not going to gain any value out of this, and that's entirely his decision. I'm hoping that I'm delivering value to you guys out of this, which I measure by the metric of how many of you stick around. So we'll keep going.
And I wanted to get this done so that I've got time to do other things elsewhere. And I'm going to take this momentum because I've been working on this, so I have a working mentality right now. If I were to go play video games right now, I'd break that, and I have to break myself out of it. So because I'm in the mindset right now to work, I'm going to, once I finish this, I'm going to move on to the next thing. So I've got to read a little bit. Now I've got to study some Japanese, and I actually have to solder another battery into a video game I just got. So I'm going to get all that done, and then once it's all finished, then I can go ahead and relax. And if you can get that right with maybe one or two activities and then expand it to most of your activities and expand it to all your activities, you're going to build conscientiousness, you're going to build willpower, you're going to build all the necessarily mental gymnastics it takes to get this stuff right. Because it's not just about forcing yourself to do it, it's about finding ways to get you to do things that are consistent. And so you'll learn certain tricks, like you learn certain tricks to lose weight. Like, okay, it's like, am I just going to not eat? Or am I going to find ways to eat less? Or am I going to find certain foods like that aren't as many calories? Or this all takes time to do, which is why you make it easy when you first start.
Sorry, I just realized this. I missed a super chat from HMK Films. I apologize, HMK. I think you're not in right now. But I'm going to make sure that this ends up in the clip anyway. So...
Puniti.
Thank you, HMK Films. Anyway, let's keep going.
Hard, because it will take you time to learn all the extra strategies to make the thing easy. And so if you're doing it for a week, you're not going to learn it. If you say, okay, I'm going to clean this room perfectly, I'm going to wash all the walls, I'm going to dust the windows, I'm going to organize every single thing on the desk, I'm going to organize my bookcase, I'm going to alphabetize everything and make it all perfect. And you spend the whole week doing that, but you only do it once. And that's it. And it takes you 5 more years to do it again. You're not going to actually learn a lesson from that. But if you just pick this up off the floor, you say, okay, let me learn a little strategy from this. I do that for like 6 months. Okay, now I picked up off the floor. I've kept that. And now I've thought of, here's all the things I did to keep myself doing that. I can apply that to some other part of the area that I'm in, and it'll all start to work itself into itself, basically. So this video is getting a little bit long, so I will leave it at that. If you like this video, please hit that like button. I guess that kind of makes sense. If you like the video and you have not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. If you have any more things to add, why don't you throw a little comment in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.
Well, you're only going to be able to do that on this video because Think Before You Sleep, Sean, has deleted this from his video archive. I guess he doesn't agree with it, but I'll keep this up as long as my channel survives. So, and heck, there's always the backup on Odyssey. So, we're going to take another brief intermission. I'm going to pull up some more AI generated music to keep you guys going. But yeah, no, my bladder's about to explode, guys. So here's some AI music. Enjoy the soothing sounds of Composition 105. Yeah, well, that was Composition 105, made in apparently August of 2022. Wow, that's a lot longer ago than I thought, but huh. Oh, also, channel 1800 Dumb super chatted 11 New Zealand dollars. Thank you very much. Let's just hit that again. Yeah, for a #1 fan sticker. Much appreciated. Though, the thing is, with YouTube taking 50%, I'd honestly, if you want to donate more than like $1 or whatever the minimum amount is, I'd suggest you go to the Streamlabs link at the top. I understand that doesn't work for everyone's currency. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I prefer you that you go through there. If not, just donate the bare minimum. Even if it doesn't give you the text-to-speech, I will force it to do the text-to-speech. I'm just really salty towards YouTube right now for saying 50%, because 30% was already greedy enough. And I want to demonstrate the Laffer curve to Neil, the new manager of YouTube, now that Susan's decided to step aside.
One of the things I wanted to...
But for our final video of the night, which, geez, how long have we been at this? All right, we're just at the 2-hour mark. That last one didn't take as long as I was worried about. And this one's only 15 minutes, so try to get through this in under an hour. Sorry, just reading chat there. A whole bunch of think before you zinc. Opponents. Think before you yeet. Think before you sink. Think before you grift. Think before you subscribe. Hey, August Lion, like, heck, I've been subscribed to him too. Like, this, it's unfortunate, like, seeing what he's become. I'd fallen off a couple years back, and it's just disappointing. 1 hour to the what? Chronic streaming tonight too? What the? Hold on a second. I gotta check the group Discord for that. Not see anything? Is Chronic streaming tonight? I try to coordinate this stuff. Jeez. 1 second, guys. Dang that green skin. I mean, that's one of the problems with the Warband getting bigger and bigger. Is now we got to compete for time slots. All right, guys. All right. So apparently we got an hour before Chronic goes live. So we're going to speed run through this. All right. It's a 15-minute video. Surely I'm not going to take an hour to get through a 15-minute video. And probably nostalgic. Brian Nostalgic. Also, thanks, Pliskin, for the DM regarding the 5 and 3 gallon jug. I think I've seen it where it's just a math problem, and that's why, like, I went through it. Like, distraction question or no, like, I still found the very concept to be an interesting idea. But yeah, if it's just how many jugs do you have, then it's more of a reading comprehension thing than any sort of what I'd call IQ. But that's that's another issue. Thanks for the DM. But yes, so we shall begin the segment now. Archived Think Before You Sleep, episode 17. Gillette. Trip down memory lane for a bunch of us, I'm sure. Let us begin.
One of the things I wanted to do with this channel is take some time to dedicate it to current events, and particularly current events that revolve around people who have harmed me in the past and people who have harmed people like me in the past. And so I have a vendetta against feminism because of feminism, I've made a lot of really terrible mistakes in my life. And of course, since this is a Red Pill channel, of course, feminism has ruined the idea of marriage that I would have liked to have, I'm sure.
Do I have a vendetta against Think Before You Sleep? I mean, I don't do too much in the way of current events. It's more so divided between things that either interest me or things that interest my audience. I'll be honest, guys, I probably would not keep this series up as regularly were I not getting such a large number of consistent viewers. So, like, just a heads up, guys, the instant that you guys stop liking this is the instant that this series ends. But I guess I'm a little bit salty and a little bit bitter and have a bit of a vendetta, because before I put the nail in the coffin and file Think Before You Sleep away, we are going to do the episode where we cover his roast of Brittany Venti's ideas. You know, the e-thought that he's currently, apparently, in a relationship with. Men aren't fooled by traditional women. Oh, we will get to that. But he's criticized Chronic and Hammerhand for not doing sufficient research. So, apparently, doing research on him is quite lucrative. It's very entertaining. So, we're going to keep at it. But, hey, the instant that you guys get bored with how repetitive this is, we'll just do that one as a big mega event. And then probably wrap it up and move on to some other topic. But for now, I'm having fun with this. Anyway, we got Chronic going live soon, so let's not spend too long before we're even a minute in.
A lot of men would have liked to have, though we cannot now because of that movement. So anytime feminism shifts its way or enters into a space it shouldn't be, I get kind of mad about that. I want to say something about that, because not only is that destructive idealistically, not only is that it's a destructive idea, but think of the...
Oh my God. You realize with the number of videos, like, I'm trying to cover 3 videos per stream, 2 streams per week. I'm pretty sure he has over 100 videos that he has wiped alone, not counting his existing content, just the stuff he's deleted. Were I to try to keep up that pace to the point where I'm actively roasting his live streams live, heck, my viewers would have, like, you guys would have to be interested in this for, I'm pretty sure, at least a year. It's going to take that long to get through his archive properly. So, hey, as long as it's successful. I mean, I've pulled up to close to 45 viewers in this stream, and that's actually somewhat lower numbers than usual for this. So, heck, again, so long as it's entertaining to you, we'll keep doing this. But let's at least get past the first minute here.
Ramifications it has on people's jobs. Like, you have this company called Procter & Gamble that spends all this time selling these products, creating jobs, and creating a market for, well, Procter & Gamble sells a lot of stuff. Like shampoo and men's care products and stuff like that. And I think they also have a little bit of a drug company on their hands as well. So they're this massive company that has done really, really well over the past couple of years through its formula. And you have a handful of feminists. They infiltrate the HR. They infiltrate the HR section of the company, which is like, I get to choose who gets fired and who doesn't get fired, which is really the most powerful position to be in. So I should just get rid of HR. Honestly, I don't think it's a very useful job. Managers should just hire people directly. But you get all these people who think they have good ideas, people who did not originate the company. So they say, hey, we really think this whole Me Too thing is popular, this whole feminism thing is popular, even though it's not. In fact, one of the things that has been destroying companies is taking things that were traditionally male roles and turning them into female roles. Like one of the biggest flops of the past couple of years has been the female Ghostbuster movie, where Sony thought it was a good idea to take...
Hey, as a ghost, I find the idea that I could be defeated by these 4 women to be highly offensive. Like, I'm sorry, but if these are the Ghostbusters, then I do not want to bust. Let's put it that way. Jesus. Oh. Sorry, let's keep going.
A cast of traditionally male roles and change into female because of reasons, and say it was an empowering message, while basically, if you watch the movie, I couldn't watch more than maybe 20 minutes of it. It just kind of caters to the least common denominator of female intelligence. So you have physical objectification for females, and in this movie they say, well, that's all wrong because feminism, and all they do is objectify a stupid male in the Ghostbusters movie. So it's like, well, how are you guys any better? You're replacing the old leadership with the same leadership, and probably worse because you weren't the ones who developed it. You just took it over. So there's this really famous Marshall McLuhan quote. Marshall McLuhan was kind of a media philosopher back in the 1970s and before that. And he has this really famous quote which says, the medium is the message, which means whatever platform you're on dictates how you communicate the message. So if I'm on Twitter versus Facebook, Twitter obviously limits your characters, so I can only say something in 240 characters, which means I have to simplify my message. Whereas in Facebook, where I don't even know if there's a character limit on Facebook, I think you can just keep going and going. Well, whether there is or not, the character limit on Facebook is very, very long. So that means on Facebook, I can have a much more long-form style communication.
Yeah, but keep in mind, there's things like twit-longers, and just like, oh, well, I have a book, and that's my media message. Like, okay, but can you hold people's attention long enough to read through it? Like, it doesn't matter how long your message is in your book if people don't even read more than 140 or 280 characters before they put it away. I don't know whether what I'm taking issue with is this philosopher or Sean's interpretation of this philosopher. Well, let's be honest. The shorter your message is, the more likely to be consumed. Like, by and large, YouTube shorts, they are going to be more easily consumed than a YouTube essay. A 7-second video, going to get more views than a 30-second video. Also, I realize I need to play I need to play something after viewing that little Ghostbusters thing. I'm still working out channel redeems, but I think that this is entirely appropriate after seeing that Ghostbusters pinup.
You need to have muscles on your eyeballs.
Still got to work out getting the audio for that, but maybe not having audio is the only reason I'm not copyright stricken. Oh, wait, no, there is actual audio for that. Cool. All right, let's continue.
Or even you can look at the medium within inside the medium, because if you want to have a big blocked Facebook post with a color background, I have to limit my characters in that case. And so that's, the medium changes how you communicate. And the medium for Gillette is we sell male care products. We sell male razors and male shaving cream. So, of course,
I'm pretty sure Gillette has female products. Does Gillette have products for women? Oh, yeah. They sell Venus. Gillette sells Venus, which is, quite honestly, I think one of the most recognizable brands in female shaving products in North America. So, yeah. They don't just sell to men. That's not entirely their message, but perhaps that's the message for this particular bit. But we'll let him go a step further. Maybe he'll mention Venus in the next 12 minutes. Let's keep going.
That's going to guide your message a little bit. Your message is going to be catered towards men. Now, why in the hell, if you're catered towards men, would you create a message that is specifically catered towards women? The first thing they say in that commercial is "Me Too." And then even inside the commercial, this is a little bit later,
they say that because they think that their consumers are mindless sheep who will just obey whatever they think is on the television so long as it's associated with a popular brand. That is the same logic that people think that female Ghostbusters will go, because they think, oh, Ghostbusters is a popular franchise. So if we make Ghostbusters a feminist franchise, then we will make feminism popular. That's the logic behind it. It's not necessarily deep or multifaceted. They legitimately think that people are such slaves to their emotions that they won't abandon a brand that avoids its core principles. Kind of wonder if Sean maybe is a little bit closer to that nowadays, now that he's abandoned the values that brought people to him in order to pursue stuff that is a little more, let's say, normie. Because, like, come on, Sean, I'm pretty sure that all you do right now is criticize fat people. That seems to be the last couple videos you put out, is criticizing fat people and fat people culture. You have fallen from grace significantly. Also, I gotta figure out what the heck. I gotta figure out how to calibrate this model, whether it's the lighting or what. But it's not picking up my mouth movements as much as I'd like. I swear, if I have to buy an iPhone to get proper face tracking, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck. That shit's expensive, but that's neither here nor there. Let's continue.
Is they show a girl saying, I am strong. Well, what does that have to do with men? I mean, even if you wanted to promote a feminist message, it's not, you're not on the platform to do that. You're not on the platform to say women are strong, because this is not a commercial for women. So what are women even doing this? The only reason a woman should be in a Gillette commercial is if she's saying, oh, wow, your chin is so smooth after you took this nice 4-blade Gillette shave and with this amazing shaving cream.
It's not for women. It's for men who are women. Men who idolize women, men who worship women, men who think, hey, if I just do this thing that women claim to like, then I will be beloved by women. That's who the Gillette commercial is for. It is not for men with self-respect. It is for men whose value is tied to female approval.
That's why a girl should be in the commercials for sex appeal, but the girl should not be there to be empowered. So the company is just sitting there stabbing themselves in the foot because I don't know why. Maybe it's like, again, the marketers.
Sorry, August, like, do women in North America shave anymore? Honestly, I wouldn't know. I don't look. I don't bother because I don't want a lawsuit heading towards my ass. If they do shave, you know what? Great. Good for them. If they don't, I don't care. So long as I don't have to smell it, it's usually not my problem.
Are all female feminist college graduates, and they think this is a really good idea. And really what they're doing is they're taking a really successful company and putting it out of business. This is terrible. This is not just, of course it's funny, because why the fuck would they make this?
You know, this infographic is actually entirely useful because this is a good way for companies to hide their shenanigans by being like, oh yeah, well, we just have a whole bunch of separate brands. And then you don't realize, oh hey, I'm buying shit from people that openly despise me because I don't recognize the brand on it. I mean, I just usually go for whatever's on discount. I have no concept of brand loyalty. But, unironically a useful graphic. So, credit where credit is due. He's actually used a variety of graphics in this video. So, congratulations on the budget increase, Sean. You know, now your stuff's actually approaching somewhat acceptable levels of content. But, you know, could still use a script.
But in the long term, because of this commercial, I will no longer ever buy a Gillette product again. In fact, if I can avoid it, I may never buy a Procter & Gamble product. If they keep playing this card, I may never buy a Procter & Gamble product ever again either. And so because of that boycott, because if they keep doing this, a lot of men will boycott it because we're sick of this shit.
I mean, I think that I think both Eric D. July and Hammerhand put it best. I think Hammerhand said this at least. Stop giving money to people that hate you. I think part of the problem is that most major companies actively hate you. What happens when everyone hates you? Are you just going to give money to the people who hate you the least? I'd have to look through this and try to pick carefully, but I don't know how many of these companies actually hate me and how many don't. I'm going to assume Johnson & Johnson does. Procter & Gamble, yeah. I honestly don't know. Anyway, that's besides the point.
And so we're going to financially punish people who have the wrong philosophy, have philosophy that does not actually reflect the opinions of most people in society. And that's going to have a massive amount of destruction on those people's jobs. So it's unfortunate when you...
Yeah, and no, Spider Spectre, exactly. We live in a corporate oligarchy, and there are 6 megacorps that own everything. Like, a couple of those are actually under the same umbrella. Like, I don't know enough to point out which of these are under the same umbrella, but I'd agree. I'm willing to bet that most products that you buy, somewhere up the chain, they're linked to someone that actively hates you. It's actually quite difficult to do enough research to find the brand that does it. And here's the thing. Even if you manage to find a brand that doesn't actively hate you, what about the distributor? Do you know that the distributor doesn't actually hate you? Like, that's the sad thing. We do live in a society that, by and large, does not like men. And it promotes and rewards people who actively don't like men. So, what do you do in that situation? I mean, maybe you could go entirely self-sufficient, but there's a point where that becomes cost prohibitive. Either you're not making enough money to do it, or you don't have enough time to do it. I can't go hunt my own meat. I can't be going out and hunting a deer or a couple deer once a year and then shoving them in the freezer to try and preserve. Some people might be able to do that. Kudos to them. Sincerely. Kudos to the people who can make that work. That is beyond my ability at this time. Maybe one day, but that day is not today, nor is it tomorrow. I'm open to suggestions, guys. I don't want to be supporting people that hate me. But I got enough shit on my plate without trying to actively fight them every second of every day or with every single purchase. I gotta make concessions somewhere. I ain't perfect. But hopefully at the very least I'm entertaining. Let's keep going.
Make dumb decisions like this, you affect a lot of people, especially the people who work for you, especially the people who are working in the same company. So you have this company that this big amalgamation of different skills and different traits, and you have one person not only not pulling their weights, but they are working in the wrong direction. And it's not even towards things that are actually real. There's all these things that are involved in feminism that are not real problems. They're like, well, if you took an issue and you interpret it the worst possible way. Like, one of these things is that if you look at female care products, they're more expensive than male care products. Now, if you asked a feminist why male care products are less expensive than female, like, why is a male haircut cheaper than a female haircut? It must be sexism. Whereas a much more reasonable explanation would be, you fucking idiot, women have a lot more hair to correct, and it's a lot more difficult to style a female haircut. Now, of course, you can get a styled male haircut, and that will be more expensive, but most men are just fine with a regular cut, or just fine with a regular...
I mean, shit. IRL, I got a lot of hair to cut. Do I want a lot of haircut? No. Normally it's just a matter of, hey, take care of the split ends so it grows healthy. I'll see you again in 6 months. $20. I don't know how much y'all pay for a haircut with probably shorter hair, but I ain't getting it freaking styled. I ain't getting it dyed. I'm willing to bet that if a woman walked into the same hairstylist that I go to and paid $20 to say, hey, clean it up, take off a couple inches, trim up the split ends, they'd probably walk out only having paid $20. So, no, it's not that the same haircut costs more for women. It's that women purchase more expensive haircuts. It's like, oh, hey, what are the food expenses? Like, oh, well, a man will go out and he'll get something really simple that gives him a bunch of calories. A woman goes and buys a whole bunch of unnecessary crap that adds a bunch of extra flavor for the excitement and then wants to pay extra for someone else to prepare it. Oh, well, women pay more for food. It's like, well, yes, that's because they want more with their food. They're getting more value out of their food, therefore they have to pay more for it. If women paid the exact same for their meals that men paid for theirs, men would be getting absolutely shafted because they don't ask for as much. Simple as.
What do you call that? Flat top cut or buzz cut. There we go. That's the right word. And you can do a buzz cut in like 15 seconds. Like I've had people buzz cut in 5 minutes. Whereas a female hairdressing.
If you need to buzz cut your hair, like, how often do you need to do it? Because realistically, just buy yourself a razor with a proper like shave setting. Like, you know, like a setting for your length, and bam, buzz yourself. And hey, I'll be honest, guys, the best electric razor that I got was literally for dogs. Like, don't bother with razors for people. Get a dog grooming shaving razor. That stuff's meant to get through fur. I don't care how thick your hair is, it will slice through it like butter. And it lasts. Heck, I'm pretty sure that mine has lasted a decade. It is amazing. You do have to have it plugged in. Ain't no battery powered shit. And it vibrates like crazy. You feel the power in that. But if you wanted to take your hair down to absolutely nothing, and your hair is basically indestructible, a dog electric razor will do it. And the best part, it didn't cost me a cent. Someone just abandoned it in the laundry room ages ago. I got no clue why. But seriously, it works. Just go to your local pet store, get a dog grooming razor, and congratulations. That is the only electric razor you're going to need for the rest of your life. It's amazing.
Job is an experience. You're there for an hour. You got to talk about all your boyfriends. You got to get your like nails done at the same time you're getting your hair done. And so no shit, it costs over $100 plus tip for that kind of crap, if not more than that, because it's more work. And there's a part in this commercial where they do the feminist explanation of a situation. And I didn't catch it the first time, but the second time I was like, oh, that's what they were trying to say. They're in this like board meeting. And well, let me just show it to you.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
I really hope I don't get copyright struck for this.
So they're in this board meeting, and I didn't catch it the first time, but
I'll just go back 10 seconds because I kind of missed that thinking about the copyright strike. So let's do that again.
The second time I was like, oh, that's what they were trying to say. They're in this like board meeting. And well, let me just show it to you.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
So they're in this board meeting, and I thought it was like, because they just showed the sexual harassment thing. So I thought what they were going.
Sexual harassment. He touched her shoulder. He touched her shoulder, and that's sexual harassment. Motherfucker, if I had to point out every single bit of unnecessary levels of touching, like I'm sorry. I've worked like in a particular workplace where my ass was literally grabbed by a woman. You think I would have gotten away with saying, oh, well, that's sexual harassment to the fucking HR department? No, but there goes my monetization. No, I wouldn't have. No. Are we now saying that shoulders are sexual? Are we saying that any physical contact is inherently sexual? This sounds like the kind of argument that these freaking Twitter people who see freaking man and a woman holding hands and immediately assume, oh, that's so lewd. I mean, it's funny when uncensored hand holding is treated as an ironic joke, but if someone is seriously thinking that two people holding hands is sexual in nature. It's like, wow. Like, okay, touching grass is not enough here. Please go get under 6 feet of dirt with grass on top of you, because quite frankly, you may as well have been there this entire time for how relevant your takes are. Like, seriously. Like, I laugh at hand holding as being a joke, but if someone seriously looks at any form of physical contact as being sexual, I'm pretty sure that's how you can tell that person does not have physical contact with absolutely anyone. One of those terminally online kinds. But that's a whole other discussion. Let's keep going.
As he touches the woman on the shoulder, he says, well, hey, I just want to get a feel of your shoulder, which I don't know. I really don't think that's a really sexual act. But he touches her shoulder, and he says, well, actually, what I think she's trying to say, like he's mansplaining. Well, maybe what happened is that she did a really terrible job of explaining her proposition, so he's trying to clarify it for the rest of the audience. Maybe he's got a better... He's the one that's ahead of the table. He's the one that's standing up, so he's probably the most powerful person in the room, which means he's likely like that because he's able to adjust his personality or adjust his speaking skill.
Entirely reasonable. Guys, like, have you ever heard a woman try to explain a specific point? Yeah, like, it's very likely going to be a confusing mess. And to the absolutely zero women watching this, by all means, prove me wrong. Can you make a point in one single coherent sentence in chat? I'm willing to bet you can't, which would prove my point exactly. Let's keep going.
To the understanding level of the audience, and she's is the lower ranking person, so she's not able to do that. So she explains something that's really complex, and he breaks it down for the other people in the boardroom to something that's a lot simpler. That is a very useful tactic, and it's a tactic that you want in a manager. So why in the hell they would say, well, don't explain things properly because women are only right is absolutely ridiculous. And then you see the last part, which is kind of it's sort of like the end of the commercial, but it's also the kind of the whole beginning of the commercial, which is really an attack on average male behavior, like average male behavior that will make you successful. So it's a fight against bullying, which because I'm anonymous, I can say I'm actually in favor of bullying. Bullying has a lot of benefits. One, if you are not being socially acceptable in a really... God, I want to explain this. There's a perfect scene about this in that new movie Bird Box, where it's like, I don't want to spoil it. Watch that movie Bird Box, and you'll see the scene I'm talking about. But
I am not going to watch Bird Box. I had no interest in Bird Box, whatever. So you may as well have explained it. But I guess it was somewhat new in 2019. But I'll give my 2 cents on it here before Sean does. Yes, bully people. Why? Because what else are you supposed to do to teach someone that their behavior is unacceptable? What, are you supposed to go to the teacher? The teacher ain't going to do shit. You ain't going to get anything out of the local authority figure. Heck, when I had a group, like, the only way to gatekeep back in middle school, you couldn't go to a teacher because they'd say, oh no, let them join, let them be disruptive, let them screw with you. They just, they want to be accepted and we don't feel like it. It's like, no, I ain't going to go to any authority figure that isn't going to back me up. I'm just going to grab this guy and throw him off a hill repeatedly until he gets the message. Because even if he keeps coming back, at the very least, the rest of the group gets to be left alone in peace while I'm in the process of tossing this guy down a hill. I was an asshole in middle school, but I certainly hope that I made things better for the community I was gatekeeping. So I still say it's worth it.
Basically, if you're a person, like, I think there's a lot of reasons why people attack people who are social.
No, you're right. Super Turbo. I wonder if he's still in favor of bullying now. Well, you know what? apparently there has been a demand for me to debate Think Before You Sleep beyond even Chronic. So, you know what? Maybe if he's in favor of it, maybe he'd be interesting. Because what would this qualify as bullying? Or would him attacking my channel qualify as bullying me because he has a higher sub count? What even qualifies as bullying like this? Because have I done, I don't know, what have I done in the way of personal attacks aside from, called out his flip-flopping of positions and called into question the reasons behind some of his more interesting behavior traits and avenues of discussion. But again, that is we're here to roast this particular video. We'll have to save some kind of grand psychoanalysis for a later one.
Socially awkward. And I think that's because if you're socially awkward, if you're not acting the correct way, if you're not kind of, playing along with the game, you're actually a danger to the rest of the tribe.
Okay, you know what? No, I'm going to disagree there because here's the thing. There's a difference between the guy who is actively disruptive towards an existing group and the guy who just wants to be left the hell alone. Like, if someone is being actively disruptive and you bully that person, then yeah, okay. Like, I have done that. I will personally say, yes, that is justifiable. That makes sense. If it's someone who's just off on their own, minding their own business because they don't particularly click, what the heck are you trying to accomplish with a bullying tactic? You're not going to make that person necessarily feel more accepted. Are you, if you are bullying them, if they change their behavior, stop being isolated and tried to engage, would you then be more accepting? Part of a larger discussion to have, actually, but probably not the context of this video. So we'll just keep going and see how long it takes to get off the bullying subject.
And so I think bullying and ostracism is there to help whip you in their shape. They're saying, hey, asshole, you're going to get us all killed if you act like this. And so the response to that is bullying the kid until they do the thing that's proper. And I think that's a very powerful thing to do because
the bullying thing, okay, if you're going to bully someone with the intention of changing their behavior, you need to kind of make it clear what the desired behavior is. Because if you are just bullying someone who you perceive as not having enough social status to raise any sort of counter force or resistance against you, then is that necessarily a good thing? Because some people will absolutely just harass people they perceive as weaker than them solely for their own emotional satisfaction, not out of any greater responsibility towards a group. There is a difference. 24 minutes till Chronic stream? Well, 6 minutes till this is done. So I'll try not to interrupt every 10 seconds here. We'll keep going.
What you would do as a good parent if your kid is getting bullied is you teach them how to not get bullied. You teach them how to be more self-confident. You might teach them how to fight back so that now they're actually useful. And if you learn how to fight back, well, the job has been done. The bully will stop bullying you because you become able to stand up for yourself. So they've done their work. And that's a positive benefit for society. Like, I don't think this...
So you're saying that the desire of bullying is to teach people who don't fight back to fight back. That's why you're saying bullying is good? You may want to clarify that, because guess what? If you fight back in modern society, then the state gets involved. Like, depending on your local laws, standing up for yourself and fighting back might put you in a prison cell and with an eternal death sentence towards the person who you were defending yourself against. So you might want to get into a little more clarity on that, but I understand. You're just speaking off the cuff here without any thought to the actual implications of what you're saying.
this anti-bullying campaign is actually good for anybody. I think it's actually very, very bad. Now, of course, if someone is sitting there beating the shit out of somebody, you should probably stop it. But a little bit of teasing, a little bit of...
Nope, not my responsibility. If someone's beating the crap out of someone else, no, I ain't getting involved. Worst case scenario, I die as a result. But far more likely is I'm going to get charged with some sort of interference. So, no. I'm not going to stop someone from bullying someone else. Because it's not my problem. But if you start bullying me, I'm going to clap back until I end up in a prison cell. So, yeah, IRL, don't mess with me unless you're willing to end up in a body bag or you can sufficiently defend yourself to lower my charge from second-degree murder to aggravated assault.
Name calling, that is not a big deal. In fact, if you're in any sort of male-dominated profession, that's going to happen anyway. And, you know, or who are you going to tell the principal on at that point? You're not going to be able to. You're going to have to learn how to work with those people yourself, and you have to do that because a lot of...
I prefer the method of poisoning the well. If someone enjoys fucking with you, make it as uncomfortable and poisonous as possible. Some people might be smart enough to clap back at them. Quite frankly, I'm pretty sure that I couldn't clap back at these people hard enough in order to make them stop without getting them to go into assault. So, since I don't want to go to jail for murder too, yeah, I'm just going to stick for poisoning the conversation to the point where they learn not to mess with me unless they want to get very uncomfortable.
Those male-dominated professions are very dangerous, and they don't want any useless people on the job. And even in the last part of that commercial where they had the two kids wrestling, it very much looks so like those kids are just having fun. And this is something that all animals do that have the ability to combat is they wrestle. You have dogs will wrestle, cats will wrestle, rats will wrestle. These are something that this is a typical case for mammals because when you're wrestling, you're learning how to communicate with your body. Because that's what we do. That's what children do at the start, but is they can't articulate their ideas, so they have to communicate things physically, and they communicate play and combat through physical contact, and it's going to be represented like that. Now, a couple of things they're going to learn. They're going to learn how hard can I hit before I piss this person off. So I might start by hitting the person too hard. He complains about that, and so I hit him a little bit less hard next time. But I don't want to hit him too lightly because then he'll think I'm a pussy. So I got to hit him just hard enough for it to be a challenge, but not so hard that it hurts him. And so you're going to learn that. But also the real important thing is when you do play wrestling is that there may be a situation where you are going to be in a physical fight. And if you don't have those play fake fights of roughhousing, that very well could be the end of you. You're going to get your ass kicked.
And that's a big part of why they don't want any of that playhouse roughhousing, because they don't want people to be able to deal with combat situations. They want the government, the elites. They want those people to have a monopoly on violence. And that means that there cannot be any sort of even pretend violence outside of highly organized stuff like martial arts in the common area. And let's be honest, if the powers that be could successfully make martial arts as a whole illegal, they would be. They absolutely would, to make sure that the only people that can learn combat are agents of the state. You know it, I know it. Let's keep going.
And so telling a kid to stop play fighting or telling a kid to not be a man or not develop in male ways, because if we don't develop in male ways, you really have to think. If this thing is here...
Maybe think before you sleep. Sorry, let's keep going.
Why is it here? Why would we have slaves? Why would we have male-dominated professions? Why would we have things like a movement against... Because we've had... Why don't I just be as...
There are no male-dominated professions. There are professions, and there are government-subsidized workforces. That's all.
Offensive as possible. We've had gay marriage or gay activity before. Why would there be a movement against it? Not to say that people can't be gay. I certainly think people can be gay, but maybe there was a reason for the pushback And the pushback might be is because there's at this point there's over promotion of homosexual activity. If you ask people who are on the left what
Well, at least maybe we found out why he dumped this from his particular archive. That statement probably might not fly in modern YouTube, but let's keep going. Let's keep going.
percentage do they think homosexuals are in society, they'll say something like 20 or 30%. Because of all the media representation of gay behavior. You would think that because there's a gay person in every single show now. Whereas in reality, a gay male is like maybe 1% of society. It's a very, very small percent. And so maybe the backlash against homosexuality was, well, hey, we need to be able to repopulate. And if everybody fucks each other, fucks their own sex, they're not going to have kids. And they're associating it with that, with the downfall of society. So there might.
Hey, goodbye monetization right there. Doesn't matter whether or not I swear. The video's going to cuss me out. Ah, well.
Might be a.
It's not like I monetize my videos anyway. The only thing I have turned on for monetization option is super chats, because if YouTube's going to be a bugger, then you know what? I may as well not torture you guys with ads.
Text in the Bible that says don't do that, because if we didn't refrain from it, we would all be dead. And so before you make corrections, now certainly gay people can certainly do whatever they want. But you have to ask yourself, what was the reason?
Between consenting adults. Like, guess what? Straight people can't do whatever they want. And there's always restrictions and stipulations. So, you might want to be a little more clear about why whatever you want, because guess what? Nowadays, we live in a society where the alphabet mafia can do whatever they want, and they don't face the same restrictions as the non-alphabet mafia. So, yeah, you might have wanted to take a couple extra words there to clarify your position, because there's a bunch of stuff that you just condoned that I don't think you necessarily want to admit to condoning.
For that rule in the first place, and this goes with every rule, so you can determine whether that rule should stay or whether it should be fixed, because a lot of rules that should stay in place are being fixed. Like maybe an example, like again, gay marriage, or actually I don't think anybody should be married, so I don't think government should have any place in marriage, whether it's gay or not. But it could be homosexuality, it could be slavery. Like, okay, let's look at what's the reason for slavery. Oh, it's to subjugate people or whatever. And well, what would be the argument for not slavery? And you can kind of battle that out. Because if you don't...
If you're going to argue against slavery, there's a whole bunch of institutions in the West that you must first dismantle. So, before you say slavery is bad, you're going to have to define what slavery is. Because you can't just say slavery is bad and then say it should never happen. Because then you're going to have to look at society and be like, well, these are all the instances in which slavery does happen and is largely accepted. But, defining one's position with nuance? Nah. That's far too much for the scope of a 15-minute video. Oh well, we're almost done, guys. We're almost done. About 2 minutes to go.
You very well will get rid of good rules. You very well will get rid of good traditions, and that's what we've been doing. The reason people don't like change is because change is very destructive. Most new ideas are bad. So just because it's new does not mean it's good. It needs to be tested in a certain playing field, or at least needs to be reason for why you should change the rules. Other than that, the rules are sexist, or the rules are homophobic, or the rules are racist. Think of why the rules might be there, and if you have a good reason for changing it, change it. If you don't have a good reason for changing it, leave it there, because these have been the principles for thousands of years, so you don't want to just go and destroy that. You don't want to sit there and throw the baby out with the bathwater, because it's very likely that your single intelligence, even if you are extremely intelligent, is not enough to develop the rules of thousands that has been made in terms of what's required thousands of people to die and thousands of years.
Thousands? Yeah, pretty sure that we've had millions die just in the past couple decades. So I think that thousands is a bit of an understatement for not following rules. Got to work on the mouth sensitivity here. It's a little lacking.
Of development, or here's what's right, here's what's wrong, here's what's right, here's what's wrong, and testing against certain markets like that. So no one person can think of that, and no one feminist group can think of all the good rules. So maybe we should keep the play fighting in, maybe we should keep the bullying in, and maybe we should leave Gillette the fuck alone and stop ruining people's jobs with your feminist message. So anyway, I will no longer be buying Gillette products, and if I can prevent it, I will no longer be buying Procter & Gamble products, and I will not put up with feminism. I will not let feminism destroy this society.
You will not pull up with feminism, but you're going to concede on the wage gap. Not even clarify that it's an earnings gap. No. You're just going to see. You're going to secede. No, not cede. Not secede. You're going to cede to them on the pay gap. Yeah, yes, that's another reason why you deleted this video, because you decided, you know what? Maybe I need to cater to feminism to gain more popularity. Oh well, let's wrap this up. 10 seconds to go.
Society. And, well, if you agree, why don't you hit the like button? Maybe hit that subscribe button as well, or if you have anything to add, throw that in the comment section. And I will see you in the next video.
There is no like button on this video because he's wiped it. There is no comment section on this video because he's wiped it. The subscribe button, well, the only one that has this video right now is me. So you're free to subscribe to me because I will be doing more of these. And as soon as I find the extra time necessary, I will be posting these individual segments. But we have been at this for how long now? Yeah, we're coming up on the 3-hour mark, and Chronic is going to be streaming. So let me post the redirect link in this chat. Get y'all over there to see our Greenskin Bruta, Lord Commander Undead Chronic. I'll pop over there. I'm going to play everybody out. Thank you for joining tonight's Red Pill Cult meeting. Hope that your robes are well dyed and in good condition. We should host at least one more this week. I want to at least get 2 done per week, because that's the only way we're going to get through this archive in a reasonable time scale. Alright, gonna play y'all out. Y'all have a good night. Peace out, Warband.